All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. My name is Spencer, and this is the first episode of many on the channel. And I'm excited. So, I want this to be a place where aspiring writers can come to gain knowledge and also leave knowledge. I want it to be a group, a community. So I'm going to be sharing with you, to start things off, a little bit about my writing journey and some things I ran into, and also some things I recommend for all you aspiring writers out there. So I'm going to start with a little bit of inspiration from a film I love called Midnight in Paris. And the protagonist, Jill, is a screenwriter in Hollywood, and he goes on vacation to Paris where he wants to become a novelist. And he travels with his fiance, who kind of sucks. And he goes on these late night walks, and he finds himself dipping into this different time period of the lost generation, with Ernest Hemingway and Gertrude Stein and F. Scott Fitzgerald and all these fantastic artists, including Pablo Picasso. So there's a scene where Jill, the protagonist who wants to be a writer, is stressed about his debut novel, and he goes into a bar where he meets Ernest Hemingway, which sounds fucking awesome, and he sits down and he kind of shares his insecurities about the novel, and he asks Ernest Hemingway, will you read it? And Hemingway says, no, even if it's good writing, I'm going to hate it because I'll be jealous of it. But he leaves Jill with a certain set of advice that I think is extremely important and a great thing to take for inspiration, especially when you're starting out as a writer, because it can be extremely daunting. And let's face it, like, I mean, at least for me, I wasn't around people who were like, oh, I'm going to be a writer, or oh, I want to be a writer, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. It was something that I felt like I had to really find on my own. So that's another hope with this channel and talking about the craft of writing, that maybe there's other people similar to me out there that would like to discuss and hear other people talking about it that they may not have around them in their daily lives. So this is the advice Hemingway leaves for Jill, and I think there's something to be said about it. He says, if you're a writer, declare yourself the best writer. He then continues to say in a competitive tone, but you're not as long as I'm around, unless you want to put on the gloves and settle it. Now, I think this quote sets such a fantastic standard for the level of ambition and intention one should attack writing with. This is something that's a beautiful craft, and I think if you're able to communicate to yourself and declare yourself a writer in a similar way that Hemingway says to, not only does it make things simple for yourself and for other people around you, but it will inspire other people, other aspiring writers, to declare they're a writer for themselves. I think it can have a cause and effect. So I think that's such a great attitude to have, especially if you're new to writing and you're kind of wondering, gee, am I a writer? Declare yourself a writer and declare yourself the best, and continue with unwavering ambition, because the truth is we need your voice in literature. So that's to start us off. Off of that, I'd say what I've found, and I've been writing for about 1.5 years now, I've found that it's a bit of like the Wild West. There's no specific way to go in writing, creative writing, when you're trying to understand and get better with the craft. You can walk any direction, and you don't know who to talk to, where to go. So here's a couple of things. I'm still very new to it all, but here's a couple of things that I remember running into not long ago. So I would recommend try absolutely everything. The worst thing you can do is put yourself in a box. Do not be the guy you just started writing and it's, oh, I deal with a word count. I do a 200 word count. Well, that's low, but I do a 200 word count every day. Or I'm just a plotter, or I'm just a pantser. You don't know. You have to try everything. You got to see what what type of writer you are, and then you have to accept that. I remember there were certain points, because I'm a binge writer, so I had to discover for myself. I had times where I would give myself a daily word count, then I tried a weekly word count, and I would set high word counts, and then I would get burnt out and be like, why? Because my brain works where it's mulling over the story for weeks on end. It doesn't stop mulling over the story, and then I'll go for a walk or take a shower, and wow, I just figured out, or a piece of inspiration just slapped me in the face. And then I sit down and I write a shit ton. So I felt almost insecure about that at first, because everyone else was, I'm hitting this daily writing goal. And I didn't hear a lot of people who are more binge writers. So I felt almost like, there's something wrong with me. No, absolutely not. Not only try everything, but don't feel bad about your differences. You are your own. This is the thing, is the craft is a spectrum, and all humans have a place in it. So wherever you lie on the craft, the spectrum of the craft, it's as fine as any place to lie. So I had to get over that after trying everything. So that being said, some good platforms to look for to try everything and to learn terms and things is just to hear people talk about it. So I recommend going to YouTube, listening to podcasts. I would do the thing where I'd get In-N-Out Burger and I'd just sit in the parking lot and I'd munch down a burger, and I would listen to the shit no one tells you about in writing. Just that alone. Or writing fiction made easy is another one. Just those alone would bring up topics that I had no clue about, or otherwise I've never known about it. And then I started to question things, and started to try their advice, and that started off a curiosity that I just kept going with. Another one is YouTube. You can find plenty of great content creators, and this is something I'm trying to become, that will discuss and share all their insights on the craft of writing, and those are still things you try. And then I also recommend doing some workshops and meeting other writers in real life. It doesn't mean you have to share your writing yet, but there's writing groups where you go and they hold you accountable, and you write for an hour in a room in silence together, and it's great to establish community. That being said, it drives me into another point of, I get that there's advice about staying on the island and staying in your lonesome. That comes with the craft. You're going to be alone regardless, this is life. Most of the time you're going to be writing in your room or wherever. So there's plenty of time for that. I recommend not staying on the island forever. I think it's fantastic to get out there and look for a community and build somewhat of a community, especially to lift you up when you're feeling uninspired or down. It's great to see people doing similar things in real life, and that's always a positive thing, I believe. So I recommend looking up on Meetup on your online. Look for local writers groups. There's got to be some around you, hopefully. If not, you can join ones via Zoom. There's one that I joined for a while where they meet every Wednesday morning via Zoom, and it's a great way to meet other writers and see people in real time that are doing something similar to you. That being said, I also believe that at some point it is very vital as a writer to have your work read, and especially as a beginning writer, it can be extremely daunting and terrifying. I mean, I crashed the fuck out before when I submitted my first one. I was submitting a short story I worked on to a critique group that I found for the first time. And yeah, I became a perfectionist. I absolutely lost it. And but I still submitted it. And the next day it was extremely uplifting when they critiqued it. It was amazing. It wasn't that it was perfect by any means, but I felt so good after that I had finally mustered up the courage to share my work. Not only that, it hardened me as a writer. It made me 10 times more confident, because I was like, wow, it's almost a rite of passage to have your work read and critiqued. That being said, you have to be careful about what you listen to. It teaches you to be confident in what you want in your style of writing. But you almost need to be critiqued to grow, in my opinion. So don't stay on an island. When you're ready, throw your work out there to be read. Put yourself at risk. It's kind of that same mindset of there's no famous gunslinger who avoided a gunfight. You be fantastic without really ever showing your work. So it's kind of that set ambition of declaring yourself a writer and declaring yourself the best and continuing forward. You'd be surprised how many writers I've met at workshops who have a hard time getting across that they are writers or have the ambition to be a full-time writer. That's rare, and I think it's dying. And that's why I think it's so important for you to be confident in declaring yourself a writer, to shed light on other people trying to do similar things and making it easier. So those are kind of the beginning advice / things that I learned off the bat. And I think the craft is such a beautiful thing, and there's so many lanes. It's never-ending lanes to this. So that's going to basically be the channel. It's discovering and conversing with you guys about what I'm doing, what works for me, what I've found helpful, and hopefully for any of you writers out there trying to get things rolling, this channel can be almost a bit of a beacon for you to find hope in and to gain some knowledge from. And I hope to learn from you guys as well. I'm Spencer, and this is the first post of the YouTube channel. Thank you for listening.